Welcome back, CSC 121 W1 Fall 2020 to exercise 12B. This will be called Turtle Squares RGB, and it'll even have a gray in there, but I didn't want to call it RGB, GB, or whatever, so we're just going to call it RGB. And we're just going to put a red, green, blue, and then a gray square, smaller ones like half the size, on the outside of the squares here. So we got to do a little figuring out. And what you're going to do first is you're going to fork this file because you just finished this file. So you could go in here and click on fork, and it'll put like a 1 after it, I believe. So it'll make like a kind of a duplicate file. And then instead of just leaving the 1 here, call this 12B and take out the RGB and just put in RGB. And you don't need the 1 in there, so I'll just take that out. And then you could just hit enter when you do that. So this is your new file. And what we're going to do here is kind of add some more variables so we have RGB colors. And we're going to keep using hex. So I'm going to make my copy a little smaller here. And we're going to make variables here for RGB. So we'll just use, R equals, and we'll keep putting things in quotes because they have to be strings, and we'll keep using hex. Now R, you should know this stuff, is FF. That's all red, and it's nothing else. There's no G and there's no B. And remember, hex is just RGB. We're just using hexadecimal numbers to indicate RGB for each 2 values. Now I'll just copy this. That might be easier. It might not. And I'll paste that, and I'll paste that again. Now keep in mind, whenever you do multiple pastes like that, that's when you forget to do something. So make sure you change these right away. That's the R. There's the G, and there's the B, and make sure you change this one. So G is just going to have FF in the middle, and B is just going to have FF at the end. So each slider's up, so the R slider, the G slider, and then for gray, let's see if you remember gray here. We can't use G again, so I'll go here and I'll just put GR for gray. And this one, I'll put quotes, I'll put a pound sign, and for gray, that would be about half the amount. So you could do something like 99, 99, 99. See how that goes. That'll be a gray color. As long as they're all the same, it's going to be gray. It just matters. The closer you get to 0, the darker it's going to get. The closer it is to F, the lighter it's going to be. So we'll leave it like that for now. So now we have these colors, the RGB colors. So those are all our colors we have here. Now, I mentioned reusing this function for 12B. So we should be able to use this whole thing. And the only thing that's going to change, and I should run this here one last time, is, because we're going to have to look at it, is we're going to put an R square here. Now, remember, if this is 0, 0 in the middle, we have to kind of think this out here. And I haven't thought it out yet either. I just thought, oh, this will be neat to do it. So we have to think this out. So where it's going to start, and we have places to put it to start. So when we do the draw square R, we know it's going to start at 100 because we already started at 0. So now we're going to start at 100. But now we have to go down. Now, first of all, we also have to think of if we're going to make it smaller. I don't want a big 100 size pixel here. I'm going to make it smaller, like half the size, like 50. So this is going to have to change. The forward thing is 50 because it's not going to go 100. It's only going to go 50. So I could put something here called like L. And up here, I could get another argument called L. And that's where we're going to put the length. Or we'll just call it length for now. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put L there. I'm going to put L here. And then we're going to have to put something down here. So for example, if I go down here and I make another one. Now keep in mind, we have 3 here, and now we have four parameters and 3 arguments, so we're going to have to change these. So we're going to have to make sure we change the length to 100 here. And one thing you could think about is instead of putting 100, 100, 100, you could even make a variable here and say large L for large length equals 100. You could do that. That way, or let's just say large equals 100. Now, obviously, you got to be careful with all these little words here because that could mean light gray or something, but large equals 100. That way you could go in here, and for all of these, you can say LG. And you don't need spaces in here. You could do LG, and you could go here and do comma LG. No. So these are all going to be LG because they're all going to be 100. And make sure you get the comma in there. So these will all be 100, and this one is going to be 50. So that'll take care of the size thing. So we got the size thing figured out. For this one, and this one's going to be R. And if you want to put a space here, maybe that'll help separate them a little bit. And so this one, now I put 50 in here. Well, you don't have to put 50. You could do the same thing. I could put small equals 50. And now I have a small square. And I could do that. So I could use variables down here. I don't have to use numbers. I could use variables. I used R for the red. I'm using SM for the small, which will represent 50. Now, if I ran this right now, let's just see what happens. There's a cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Okay, and there's my red. Now, it worked. It's just in the wrong location because it's starting at 0, -100. It's using the same one that the black one used. All we have to do is change it. So it's nice to look at this because we could say, oh, it's going to start at 100, and then the Y, it's going to start at 0, negative, whatever half of it is. So if it's a 50 pixel square, half of it going down is going to be 25. So we could do -25. And we'll probably be using that same number for everything. So let's see how that works. Let's see, once we get a red one, it should be easy to do the rest. It's going slow. All these squares here are slow. It seems to be slowing it down for some reason. Okay, and there's my red. Perfect. That's what I want. I want a red, I want a green up here, a blue, and then a gray down here. So that's perfect. So this should be easy to do. That's why I said, that's why we just made it 12B. We didn't make it a whole new exercise. So we're just going to have 4 down here. Now this one is going to be not R, this one's going to be G. So we're still going counterclockwise. I don't know why I decided to go counterclockwise, but I am. So this one's going to be G, and its Y is going to be, you can already see its Y is going to be 100. So we know its Y is going to be 100 up. It's going to start up here, but then it's going to have to go over, let's see, if this is 0, it's going to have to go over -25 so that it centers it on these. So it's going to be at -25. So we'll put -25 for the X, and let's see how this works. See if we got all our other variables right, because this is where you'll find out if you wrote your hex right and things like that. There's a red, there's a green, and that looks good. Seems there's a little border over it, and that's okay. Now that's what it uses for green. If you want to make it darker, you could go here. This is what's nice about variables. If you're like, I don't like that bright green, I want a darker green. Well, you could go into the green and say, well, instead of FF, let's make it, you know, CC or something. Let's make it a little darker. I'll use caps since that's what they're using in hex. So if I wanted to make it a little darker, I could just adjust that color if I didn't like it. It's slowing down here, pushing the limits of our turtles here. So there, that's a little darker green. That looks a little better. And now it's not true RGB green, but at least on the screen, I think it seems to make like a lime green. That looks more like a regular RGB green. All right, now the blue over here, that should be easy. So we'll go down here and just copy this one. And this will be blue. And it'll be kind of the opposite of this one. So it's going to be like -100. Now keep in mind of where it starts. This is -100, but if it starts at -100, it goes this way first. So it has to be -125, or actually -150. We have to give it room for the whole square plus wherever it's starting. So it's actually going to start at -150. It's going to start right about here. So that would be -150. It's -100 and then -50, which would be -150. So it's going to start here, and it's still going to be down the same as the red one, like down -25. So the down part of this one, of the blue, is going to be -25, the Y, and then the X is going to be -150 because it's going to be the 100 to move it over and then an extra 50. So that'll be 150, and let's check that out. And that looks pretty good. It's perfect. Now for the gray down here, we just have one more to do, and that should be kind of the opposite of the green. So maybe I'll copy the green. That makes more sense, to copy the green, and I'll paste the green, and then I'll make that gray right away because that's the color it's using. It's using gray, and it's going to be the same X of -25, and it's actually going to be negative. It's not going to be -100 because it's not going to start here. It's going to be -150 because we have to add on the size of the square. So we have to add in the size of the square here. So that'll be -150. And I'll try it out, and I'll hit run. And there's my 4 CMYKs. And there's my R, my G, my B, and the gray. And that's a good gray. Except something happened here. Something happened with that. I didn't get an error. We got to see what's going here. Let me just run it again. Make sure I didn't have some glitch here. Yeah, see, I think I mentioned that before. If something looks odd, just run it again, because there's no reason that it should have stopped there, because it worked the first time. So that's all we're doing for 12B. Now, just to review this, because I don't want you just following and doing it and not understanding it. So just to review this a little bit, here's all our variables. These are all just for colors, plus we have 2 variables we put for length. And we just used an L down here. So whenever there's something that's going to be variable, meaning it's going to change, we put a variable in here. So we have CLR, we have STX, we have STY, and that's what we did the first time. And then we made one more, which is going to change, and we made it an L. So that means we put another parameter up here. So when we define the function is basically saying, hey, we need a CLR, we need an STX, we need an STY, we need an L. And then they go, hey, do any of you guys down there need any of them? And this guy's saying, yeah, I need CLR. This guy says, I need STX and STY. And then finally forward says, yeah, I need an L. And then they'll say, okay, when they call the function, we need all these values. And they're going to send in these values here. And if they send in a wrong value, if you send in something that's like, S or something, and you run it, it's going to go run through it. And then when it gets to one of these, it's going to be like, whoa, 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 I got no S. What's S? It's going to go look up here. There's no S here. What the hell's S? And here it says name S is not defined, line 35. So it's saying here, when it got to here, it's saying we got no S. There's no S. So we have to make that small. So now it has to match up. That's because it's matching up to this here. It didn't even get to the point where it's trying to even run the function. It's just saying, hey, I don't have an S. So that's what's happening down there. So you have to make sure that if you're using variables as your arguments, you have to have them up here. So we're using variables. We're using variables in our arguments, and arguments are actually acting like variables. They're acting like the values of variables. So it's almost like we're declaring 4 variables up here and then using them within the function. Now we couldn't use them outside the function. We couldn't use, again, you couldn't just print out something with CLR. I don't think it would let you use it outside the function. It would only be allowed inside the function, I believe, unless it wouldn't be allowed in another function. We'll have to check that out when we talk about local and global. But for right now, these are kind of local. They're declared in there, and they shouldn't be allowed to be used outside of there. But anywhere, that's 12B, and that's using RGB, and I'll just print it one more time or run it one more time, just so you see the final look of what it looks like, and just to make sure everything works fine. And you could even make it faster if you want. And you see it's just slowing down here. It's not that there's a problem, because if you run it again, I think it just, we're running on the web. So whenever you're running on an online kind of thing here, I mean, it's Friday. There could be thousands, millions of kids in school right now running the Replit IDE right now. It's 12:30. It could be programming classes all over the country right now are running in Replit right now, and it's slowing down. So if you ever get that, just run it again or even refresh, because just your browser's slowing down. It seems like it's having problems here. So maybe it's just all this stuff going all over the country. I'll even refresh it. And you can see, even refreshing, it's going a little slow here. So it could just be when I'm recording the video here in the middle of the day on a Friday. It's just, things are just taking a little bit longer here. I'll see if I run my speed faster here. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll get by quicker. So let's run it one more time here. And there it goes. There it goes. It's going. All right, looks good. All right, everything looks good. So that's what it should look like when you're done. That's 12B, and it's just kind of extending what we were doing in exercise 12 by just using all these different function calls with arguments that are getting sent into parameters in our one function. So we'll be doing more with that, but that was a little introduction to turtles, a little introduction to functions, parameters, all in one. So that's 12B. When you're done with this, make sure you just share it and go down here, copy the link. Go back to coursework. Of course, it's logging me out. I should have one set up here for 12B, so click in 12B, add a comment, insert your link, paste it, new window, so it opens up in a new window, hit OK, and hit save, and you're done. So that's 12 and 12B, kind of an introduction to turtles, introduction to functions, parameters, arguments, all that kind of stuff, and we'll continue with a little more turtle work in this unit.